Alright, let's get rolling on our walkthrough for Hoard of the Dragon Queen, Book 1 of the Tyranny of Dragons campaign. I'm Dad the Dungeon Master, I've been a DM for over a decade, I am a published author, and I have run this campaign for multiple groups, so I have made every mistake, and I'm going to help you guys avoid those. Before we get into it, I'm going to do a quick explanation of how I structure these videos so you know exactly what you're going to get out of it. So the first thing that I do is I include every single thing from the book. So you could literally run this campaign without ever reading the book. I include every location, every encounter, every NPC, every skill check, every save. The second thing I do is clear up any unintentional mistakes, like typos where they put the wrong word, or sometimes they'll say the door is on the east side of the room when it's actually on the west side, or near the end of Fandelver they say that there are 9 prisoners but the book only lists 8. So I will clear up things like that, things they didn't intend to be in there. The third thing I do is I clear up mistakes they put in intentionally. And when I say intentionally, I mean sometimes the writers make logical errors or narrative mistakes when it comes to storytelling. Like there will be times where they expect players to do a certain thing. And in my experience running the game multiple times, the players will never do the thing that the writers thought they would do. So I clear up those mistakes and help you avoid falling into those narrative traps. And the fourth and last thing I do is I give you the ideas that I've come up with and I've used to make this game just better, more fun, more fluid, and just be a better overall experience for your players. Things that are not in the book, things I came up with that have worked really well for me in my games. So with that out of the way, let's dig in. So the book has chapter 1 starting with the party on the road headed toward Greenest. They crest the top of this hill and they see a blue dragon attacking the town. Fires that are already going in the town, people running around in fear. The big problem with this opening, while it's very cinematic, and you'll see a theme throughout this book, especially this first chapter, where they have really great cinematic ideas that would be awesome in a movie, but they don't really make sense for a D&D campaign. And Wizards of the Coast also kind of has this bad habit of making level 1 encounters that would easily TPK level 1 characters, so we're going to try and avoid that. Logically, any group of level 1 adventurers that sees a fully grown blue dragon attacking a town, it doesn't matter if they're from the town, because there are some backgrounds in the book that are like, you're from Greenest or you have these connections to Greenest. It's a suicide mission to run in there and try and fight an adult blue dragon. So to me, it never made a lot of sense to start the party outside of town. In fact, I don't even start with chapter 1. I like to run chapter 2 first, where your party starts out as prisoners of the bandits, which turns out to be the cult. They escape, basically do the chapter 2 stuff, and get back to town, and then it's attacked by the dragon. But we're going to do these videos in order of the book. We're doing chapter 1, so I'm going to treat this as though you're starting the campaign at level 1 in chapter 1. So, that being said, I think you should start out with your players already in town. As I said in the Session 0 video, almost your entire party should have some connection to dragons because they're so heavily featured in this campaign, instead of being like connected to Greenest, because it really only matters for like the first couple chapters. And the group happens to be either staying at an inn in town or the old classic, they're hanging out in a tavern in the town of Greenest. That is when the dragon attacks. That works better because the villains, the bandits, the cult of the dragon, though I don't think you should let them know that it's the cult of the dragon yet, they're out there in the streets, the dragon's attacking, there are people running every direction, and your party knows that by being adventurers and having a little bit better handle on dangerous situations, that they are going to be able to help the civilians of this town. So the bandits are lighting fires all over the town, but apparently thatch doesn't burn as easy as we think it does. So most of the fires are like haystacks and barns, and of course you've got the blue dragon flying around, and this all starts right at about sunset. Because of the fires and the half moon that's in the sky, everywhere has dim light, so it's not darkness even though it's nighttime. The book doesn't mention it, but dim light gives you disadvantage on perception checks that rely on sight. So for basically this entire chapter, unless they're in the keep, which is well lit, they will have disadvantage on all their sight-based perception checks. I'll throw the map of the town up here. And you can see there's also a stream that runs through town. It's not very deep. It's only like 3 feet deep, and it has a gravel bottom. It says all of the characters can traverse it easily. In the areas where there are bushes, it's actually steeper, so it's harder to get in and out. But all the areas that don't have bushes, you can climb in and out of the creek easily. I would say if you have a character that's a halfling or a gnome, like a small race, it might be harder for them to traverse the stream. So you may want to have them make athletics checks. But if you just let that go, that's not a big deal. The setup for this chapter is really interesting. I can tell that it's the very first adventure that 5th edition had, because at some points it seems like they don't even really understand the rules. So part of me feels like they were writing it at the same time as they were coming up with the rules for 5th edition, and all of the information didn't get passed between the two groups. But we're going to do our best to make do with what we have. The story itself is great. The structure of it is just a little messy. The way that the chapter's set up is you have a bunch of random encounters that you could have, and you have a bunch of random events that could happen in any order. That is fine if you're an experienced DM. Taking those pieces and putting them together the way you want is really fun. But a lot of people run this campaign as like one of their first times running D&D. So I'm going to give advice for new DMs, and I'm going to include stuff that experienced DMs would benefit from as well. So if you're running this for a group that's new, you're also teaching these people how to play D&D at the same time. So there's a certain way you want to handle things. For one, you probably want to try and avoid killing anybody in your first session. But this is one of those things that you kind of have to feel out. Understanding your players is like 90% of DMing. Okay, it's like 75%. Because if you have players that are going to quit if their character dies, you don't want to kill that character. But if you have people that understand they're playing a game, that characters die sometimes, that the possibility of your character dying is part of what makes it fun, then I wouldn't protect them. I wouldn't pull your punches. I would let it be that if a character dies, they die. Now, this is brutal. Your entire party might die. You don't want a TPK. But most people are very insightful, and your players will probably be able to tell that you are protecting them. And that seems like it's the nice thing to do, but it ruins the fun. If there's no danger, there's no fun. So what I'm trying to say is, I'm going to help you set it up so that you don't accidentally TPK your party, but I'm not going to make it so that it's impossible that one of your characters might die, given bad luck, given bad decisions, given dice rolls. And that's really the main thing. You want a new party to realize if you make poor decisions and if the dice don't roll your way, it should be possible for a character to die. With that said, the book says the streets are overrun by cultists, acolytes, kobolds, ambush drakes, and giant lizards. But giant lizards are never mentioned anywhere else in the chapter. There's no encounter that includes giant lizards. They're literally never listed in this chapter ever again, so you can just ignore that it even says there's giant lizards there. There's a table that lists random encounters that your party can have as they move through town. I'll throw that chart up over here. The way that it's set up is, if your party is moving carefully, they have to make a stealth check DC 10. The book says that if 2 individuals fail that check, you have an encounter. So this is one of those times where I don't think they had the rules yet, because there are group checks. And the way a group check works is, as long as more than half the party succeeds, the check succeeds. So you can use the group check rules, or you can do this 2 individual fails rule. It's up to you. Rules as written, it's a group check. DC 10 stealth is pretty easy, even for level 1 characters, but they could roll bad. If your party is not careful and they're just moving through the streets without trying to stealth or trying to avoid encounters, you roll a D8 for every 100 feet they move, which is not much. If you roll a 5 or more, you roll a D8 on the table and they have an encounter. If they roll a 4 or less, they have no encounter just by chance. But at rolling that every 100 feet, your party should realize pretty quick, and if they don't, you should kind of explain it to them, that if they just move out in the open, they're going to keep having to deal with cultists. And as a level 1 party, it's not going to take much, just a couple bad die rolls, and they are dead, TPK. So you have to kind of treat level 1 parties with kid gloves a little bit. You just have to take care of them. You don't want to make them realize you're taking care of them. They still need to have trials. They still need to have dangers, but don't just slaughter them right out, because if you just kill your party, the entire party, in the very first combat encounter, they may never want to play again. Part of your job as a DM is making it fun enough for your friends to want to come back and play D&D with you more. I'll explain how we can massage things to make it dangerous, to make it fun, but not just slaughter the whole party. But before you have any of those random encounters, the very first thing that should happen when you come out of the inn or when you enter town, if you're doing it the way the book has it, is there's an encounter called Seek the Keep. A family runs out in the street in front of you. There's a father who is limping. He looks like he's been injured from previous combat. 3 young children and the mom. The mom is carrying a shield and she has a broken spear. And as they run across, she turns back to face their pursuers. Looks like she's willing to do what it takes to give her family time to escape. She seems like a badass. I think that's awesome. I think it's cinematic. This whole chapter is beautifully rendered. If it were a movie, I would watch it. But we have to be careful running it as a game because she's being chased by 8 kobolds. That's a lot for a first level party. In general, the way that 5e handles how they balance encounters is a party of 4 and 4 adventurers and this woman who is a commoner with 8 HP and +2 to her attack. 8 kobolds is pretty tough. So what I do is I have it be a number of kobolds equal to the party +2. So if you have 4 party members, it's 6 kobolds. Because I want them to feel outnumbered, but I want them to feel like they can kind of handle things, and that balances pretty well. Your party should handle that pretty easily. If the party ignores this combat, the kobolds will focus on killing the woman first and her family after. But the chances that they will ignore this are pretty slim. Even the parties I've had that have had some somewhat selfish characters, it's your first session, everybody's looking to get into a fight, everybody's looking to have some adventure, they're going to intervene, they're going to help this lady. Her name is Linan Swift, and her husband's name is Cuth. She has 8 HP, a +2 to attack that does 1d6 piercing damage. Her husband only has 2 HP because of a previous fight, and the children only run at 20 feet per round. A party member can easily carry one of the children, but while carrying a child, you have disadvantage on your attacks, and you can't use 2-handed weapons. Once the kobolds are defeated, Linan will tell the party that they should make their way toward the keep. That's where the townspeople are supposed to go when things like this happen, and while the bandits are trying to surround it, they haven't fully enclosed it yet, so there should be time for you to get in there. The book has it so that in order to get to the keep, you have to pass by 3 more groups of enemies. 1d6 kobolds, and if you roll a 6, one of the kobolds is a winged kobold, and 1d4 cultists in each group. It says that you can try and sneak past them, you can try to fight them, you can try to bluff your way through, or you can retreat and try and find another way, and each time you retreat, you run into 1d6 more townsfolk. The book doesn't say 1d6, it just says d6 with no number in front. Again, I think that's because they didn't really fully have all the rules worked out yet, so it's just 1d6. The book also says that when you try to sneak or bluff your way past bad guys, that they get to roll their checks with advantage to see you or to see through your bluff. I don't really think that's fair. The book doesn't give any good reason why they have advantage. It's dim light, so they should also have disadvantage on perception checks. The kobolds don't because they have dark vision, but the human cultists, they should definitely have disadvantage on their perception checks. So I don't give advantage on the insight or the perception checks to see through a bluff or to find your party as they sneak. With a level 1 party, if they end up having to fight all 3, they're not going to survive. Your party will die in the streets if they have to fight their way through all 3 of these groups of cultists. Once they make it through there and they get however many townsfolk they have with them to the keep, the doors are shut, and at that point the cultists surround the place. The book says at this point to give your party XP based on the enemies they defeated, and 50 extra XP for every NPC they got safely to the keep, divided amongst your party. I don't like XP leveling for many reasons, chief among them being that I feel like it encourages not a great way of playing. Like I was running Icewind Dale and one of my players saw some goats and literally was like, I'm going to go kill those goats. I don't know how much XP they give me each, but I want that XP, that sweet, sweet XP. So it also favors combat instead of roleplay. The book never says anything about giving XP for roleplay. It doesn't give XP for discovering locations like Fallout does. So I use milestone leveling. I think everyone should use milestone leveling because also having XP be something that the players worry about encourages metagaming. It makes them think about XP, which doesn't really make sense. You should want to progress the story. You should want to play your character the way you designed it, role play the best that you can, and as you progress the story, your character levels up. So I do milestone leveling. With that being said, if you don't count experience as you go, The book says that you don't level to level 2 until you get to the end of this first chapter. No level 1 party is really strong enough to even survive this attack, let alone the missions that they have to go on throughout the rest of this chapter. So what I do if I start with this chapter and everybody's at level 1 at the beginning is when they make it to the keep, I go ahead and let them level up to level 2 so that they have a little bit more HP, a little bit more going for them to try and survive and even accomplish some of the missions that are listed throughout the rest of this chapter, because there's no way a level 1 party can do it. So once you get to the keep, there are 7 missions listed in this chapter, and all except for the last one, the Half-Dragon Champion, which has to come last, it says you can do them in any order. That's true. That's also one of the reasons why a more experienced DM would have an easier time running this chapter, because he would be able to tell what order to put these in. So I'm going to tell you what order I think they're best in. Once inside the keep, there are 2 important NPCs that will approach the party. Governor Nighthill runs the town. He's in charge of everything. When the sky is clear, he'll be up on the top pacing around the parapet. If the dragon's attacking, he's down inside the keep. But either way, he will want to talk to the party. When he approaches, you'll see a human male of 60 years. The side of his face is bandaged and his right arm is in a sling. The other important NPC is Escobar the Red. He's a shield dwarf with a tangled red hair and beard. He is the master of the keep and is in charge of organizing its defense. So as far as how I think the order of events should go and how I think Governor Nighthill should explain it to you, it goes like this. When he takes the party up to the parapet, you can see out to all of Greenest. And it's at this point where he will kind of explain the possible missions. He points out the areas where the bandits are attacking. He explains that if you captured one of the higher ranking members of this bandit group, you may be able to figure out what they're doing. The book says that you can fold that mission into one of the other missions. The other missions being Save the Mill, where you have to stop a group of bandits from burning down the town mill, which, if it's burned down, will make it very difficult for the town to survive winter because it ruins all their grain. Or the mission called Sanctuary, where you can see that there are a group of townsfolk that are holed up in the temple of Chauntea, and there are bandits surrounding it. It looks like they're trying to get in. What I like to do with these 2 missions is I like to make it so that the party realizes that they only have time to handle one or the other. So they have to either choose to save the mill and thereby keep the town from starving over the course of winter, or save the people that are in the temple, thereby saving their lives tonight. So the reason I do that is because I don't want the world to feel like a video game where enemies, NPCs are just standing around waiting on the party to show up. And whether you show up now or 10 hours from now, they're always right about to do the thing that the party's trying to stop them. I want the world to feel like it's moving with or without the party. So by making them have to make this choice, one, they have to make a morally ambiguous choice, which is always fun. Whether you're playing a video game or D&D, morally ambiguous choices are fun. 2, it makes them feel like the world is moving on with or without them. It gives verisimilitude. So once the party is aware of those 3 missions, finding a prisoner to interrogate and either saving the mill or protecting the people in the temple, obviously they need to know how to get out of the castle. So then I have Escobar the Red tell them that there are basically 2 ways. The book says that you could probably put a rope down the back wall of the castle and sneak out under cloud cover, but that doesn't make a lot of sense if bandits have surrounded the entire keep. So the 2 ways that are missions in the book that you can get out of the castle is the old tunnel and the sally port. The old tunnel leads down to the creek. It's like a way for the castle to get water if they're under siege, or to escape if that becomes necessary. And then the sally port is like this side gate where soldiers inside the keep could mount a counterattack against warriors outside. Both of those have their own missions. They have their own things that could happen there. So I like letting the party choose which way they want to try and go out of the castle, and then I run that mission. So the last mission that's not the Half-Dragon Champion that has to come last, the 2 escapes from the keep, and the 3 missions that the governor gives you is Dragon Attack. And it says at any point in the night you can have the dragon attack as long as the players are in the keep. Obviously, you can't defeat the dragon. You're just going to try and help chase him off. So I run that second to last right before the Half-Dragon Champion. So to put that all in order and make it way more simple than what I just said, they get the missions from Governor Nighthill. They decide to either go out the sally port or the tunnel, so you run one of those 2 missions. They decide they're either going to save the mill or they're going to go save the people in the temple. While they're doing one of those 2, they capture a prisoner who they can interrogate. Once they get back, the dragon attacks and they help fight it off. And then the 7th and final mission is the half dragon coming and challenging the champion. That's your 7 missions. That's how it's best to run them. The old tunnel leads from inside the keep down to the stream at Area 2 is where it comes out. There are grates with locks covering each side, and the exit next to the stream is made to look like a sewer covering. Escobar the Red has the key to the old tunnel. Because the castle's never been under siege, there are crates and barrels piled in front of the exit at this end of the tunnel. It takes a few minutes for the party to clear that out. And even though you have the key, the lock is stiff because it's never been used, but you can get it unlocked with Escobar's key. The book says that if you don't have Escobar's key, that it's a DC 10 Thieves' Tools check, but there's no reason for Escobar to not give you the key. And yes, it is a Thieves' Tools check, not sleight of hand. Don't let Baldur's Gate confuse you. There's a reason why rogues get proficiency with thieves' tools. Sleight of hand is for tricks, for planting something on someone, hiding something on your person, maybe cheating at cards. But with locks, traps, things of that nature, you have your dexterity. And then if you have proficiency with thieves' tools, you can use your proficiency. You also have to have thieves' tools. If you don't have proficiency with thieves' tools, even if you have a set of thieves' tools, your proficiency with sleight of hand does not apply. The disused tunnel is choked with webs, and once you get close to the far end, you disturb 2 swarms of rats. Once half their number is destroyed, they will flee. Basically, once they're at half HP, because it's a swarm, it's kind of hard. Like, how many rats are you killing with each hit? You know what I mean? So, but once you deal half the HP damage to one of the swarms, they flee. Same with the other swarm. It won't be much of a hassle to fight these 2 swarms of rats. If you were to leave them out, it wouldn't be a big deal. The lock on the grate at the far side has rusted, I guess because of exposure to the moisture. And even with the key, it's a DC 10 dexterity check to open the lock. It doesn't say Thieves' Tools, but I'm guessing that even if you have the key, it's a Thieves' Tools check. I think Thieves' Tools would still help you get the lock open. If you don't have the key, the DC increases to 20, but like I said, you should have the key. And if you fail the check by 5 or more, the key breaks off in the lock, or Thieves' Tools if you're doing that. At that point, the only way to get the grate open is with a DC 15 strength check. The book doesn't say that athletics would apply, but if I had a character proficient with athletics, I would let them add their athletics proficiency to this check. The book has it so that there are a group of raiders passing nearby the end of the tunnel as the party emerges, and it says that if the party succeeds with either the key or the thieves' tools, that the first party member out of the tunnel will see these raiders before they see them, and the party can either hide in the tunnel or try to ambush the raiders. It then says that if the check fails, the raiders notice the party and to roll initiative and run combat as normal, but it doesn't say what check. I assume that they mean a stealth check for your party hiding, but it also doesn't give a DC. So just use the normal rules for stealth where your party rolls stealth and you compare it to the raiders' passive perception. If the party has to force the gate open with the strength check, then the raiders actually will notice the big loud bang and they will hide and then ambush the party. Again, it doesn't say about checks or numbers to roll. Have the raiders roll their stealth against the party's passive perception. This raiding party consists of 2 cultists and 6 kobolds. And the book says that if any of the cultists are alive when the 4th round of combat starts, they will flee to go get help. They probably won't be because 4 rounds is really a long time in D&D combat. But if they are, they flee, and 10 minutes later, 2 more cultists, 10 more kobolds, and an ambush drake show up. This really only matters because 10 minutes your party's going to be gone, is they will be there when your party returns to try and go back in through that tunnel. So just keep that in mind. If one of the cultists flees and he gets away, which is very slim chance, I don't think I've ever had that happen, then this other group will be here waiting when the party returns. As far as rewards for this mission, the book gives you XP. Don't do that. And you get the tunnel to use to go in and out. It says that every time you exit this tunnel, you roll a D6. On a 1, the party is seen and attacked by raiders. On a roll of 2, the raiders see the party, but instead of attacking, they set an ambush. 3, 4, 5, and 6, nothing happens. The way the Sallyport mission is set up in the book is that at some point when your party is inside the keep, a group of raiders finds the Sallyport, forces it open, and comes into the keep. Escobar notices them, runs into the courtyard, and sounds the alarm. Now, it's not like a full-on assault. It's really more like a probe that got out of hand. So there are enough defenders to handle the cultists that got loose inside the keep. But Escobar wants the party to go and secure the sally port, which involves fighting their way there and fixing what's been broken. Like I said, I have this whole thing happen if your party chooses to use the sally port to get in and out of the castle instead of the tunnel. Waiting in the 10 by 20 foot room inside the sally port is one cultist, 4 kobolds, and an ambush drake. Your party has to fight and defeat them in order to repair the gate. The quickest and easiest way to fix the gate is with 5 castings of mending, each one taking a minute. So your party has to protect this room while one of the party members does that. If none of your party has the mending spell, which chances are they probably won't, then there is a lady inside the keep that somebody can run and get, and she will come back and do the mendings. But again, your party has to defend the area. As the mending is taking place, another group attacks with 1 guard, 3 cultists, and 4 kobolds. The book says that the attack can either come from inside as the attackers realize that they're being routed and try to flee, or from outside. And that if you use barrels and crates to barricade the opening, you can probably hold them off until the mending is done. Because my party is fairly low level, which what makes this entire chapter so difficult for a first or second level party isn't each individual battle, it's stacking up all these combats one after another with no long rest. So I usually have them come from the outside, that way the party can just hold them at bay while the mending is finished. The only reward listed for the Sally Port mission is the XP. Again, we're ignoring that. And again, as far as the attrition that this chapter offers, your party can take a short rest, but they only get 1 hit die per level. So even if you've leveled them up to level 2, they can only roll 2 hit die worth of healing. So they're really only going to probably take 1 short rest throughout all this. That's not a lot of healing, and there are a lot of combats in this chapter. So just keep that in mind. The book has it set up so that the attack starts at 9 p.m. Dawn is at 6 a.m., but all of the cultists leave by 4 a.m. So you have 7 hours. Each one of these missions is supposed to take about an hour between planning, going on the mission, coming back. And your party is probably going to take at least 1 short rest. That also takes an hour. So that's why you can't actually do all 7 missions unless you do them all without a short rest, which is impossible. The next mission listed in the book is the dragon attack. Again, I run this second to last, but I'll do it now because that's the order it is in the book. 4 when the dragon attacks. It's an adult blue dragon. It has lightning breath, a 60-foot line 5 feet wide of an average of 66 damage, hitting everybody in that line. There are 20 defenders on the parapet when the dragon attacks, and the way that it does it is it swoops in, does its lightning breath, then flies away and waits for its lightning breath to recharge and then comes back around. And it never gets closer than 25 feet of the wall. The book says that the dragon doesn't target the adventurers at the beginning of the attack. It focuses more on the other defenders, and each breath weapon attack kills 1d4 defenders and injures 1d6 defenders. The book says that the NPCs' attacks do not hurt the dragon, and that you should make sure to demonstrate the dragon's destructive power, I guess by vaporizing some soldiers, before you turn the dragon on the party. And it says because the dragon's breath weapon could easily kill a first level party member. Because they plan on you being first level when you fight an adult blue dragon. Like I said, they have a habit of making TPKs for first level parties. Your party should be second level. That's one thing. An adult blue dragon's lightning breath will still vaporize a second level character. If he succeeds the save, anybody with 16 or less HP, vaporized instantly. And that's if the dragon rolls average damage. It could roll more. And because the NPC's attacks don't do any damage to the dragon, the party have to be the ones to chase it off. If the party either lands a single critical hit or does 24 total damage to the dragon, it will fly away because it doesn't really care. It's not really worth its time. The dragon, whose name is Lennithon, by the way, actually sees this whole attack as beneath it. So it's kind of helping, but it doesn't really care. The book also says that if one of your players does land a crit on the dragon, that the soldiers will lavish praise on them. But even if they don't, the soldiers should still be pretty pleased that the adventurers chased the dragon off. So what I do is I have the dragon attack the NPCs the first couple of times it swings around. I have an NPC, one of the soldiers, explain to the party like, hey, we can't defeat the dragon, but maybe if we do enough damage, we can make this attack too much of a hassle where it'll let off. So your party should kind of get the setup to this whole encounter. So after a couple of rounds of the dragon vaporizing poor soldiers on the wall, On the third round, and your party should have done some damage to the dragon at this point, that's when I finally have the dragon turn its breath weapon on the party. What I do is I act like I roll for it. Like I'm like, you're 1, you're 2, you're 3, you're 4, and I roll a d4. That is me managing my player's perception. I don't leave it up to random chance. There are tons of times when you should leave things up to random chance. There are tons of times when you should not leave things up to random chance. The dragon in my games will always target the person with the best dex save because they have the best chance of living. Because if one of your party members fails this save, they are dead. The other way to choose who you target with the dragon's breath weapon is, instead of picking who has the best chance of surviving, pick the player you think would be the least devastated if their character died, because there is a benefit into having a party member die. It shows the party that the world is dangerous, that it's not a video game, that you can't just load your last save, and that will raise the tension in combat. It will raise their anxiety for the dangers of the world, and that's a good thing. Tension is the driver of all storytelling, and if your party's not afraid of dying, they won't feel that tension the same way. Now, the way you choose who you kill is, especially if you're playing with a party that's new, because you don't want somebody to die and then quit playing D&D, you pick the person that you think is most resilient of the real life people, of the players. And then if their character dies, if that's how you want to do it, you can leave it up to chance. But if you want this blue dragon to kill one of your party members, pick the one whose player is the most resilient, the least likely to quit if their character dies. And then once the dragon kills them, go ahead and have them immediately start rolling their ability scores. If I have a player character die, I hand them the dice and say, start rolling right now. You're going to make your character right now. We're going to keep the game going. But in this instance, it's easy because their character can be one of the other townspeople that was in the keep already. Or maybe an adventurer who happened to be in town that also made their way to the keep. So this is actually a great situation to be able to put somebody right back into the party without having to wait for a narrative reason for them to join. But you definitely want them to start making that character immediately, because you want to jump as quickly from the devastation of losing their character to the joy of making a character, because making a character is fun. They're going to be disappointed for a second. The most stalwart players I have still get a little upset when their character dies, but it's a great lesson for your party to learn. I'm not saying you absolutely should do that, but there are benefits to doing it. And once the dragon is driven off, each one of your party members earns 50 XP, but you minus that to 25 XP if 10 or more of the defenders died, which they probably did. But we don't care about XP anyway. The next mission listed in the book is Prisoner. This is the one I mentioned where the governor has you up on the parapet. He will actually point out Frulem Mondath, the wearer of purple, the highest ranking member of the cult that's in the town. She's in her purple robes and she's surrounded by a dozen guards. You are not going to get the chance to capture her. And the book suggests that you fold this in with one of the other two missions, the Saving the Mill or the Sanctuary, where you help the people in the temple. That's a great piece of advice. He just wants to be able to interrogate somebody, and he thinks the higher ranking members will have more information, which they will. It also says that Governor Nighthill will not be happy if you go interrogate the character yourself. He wants you to bring them back so that his soldiers can interrogate them, but your party can be involved with the interrogation if they want. This is one of those times when you have to know your party. Some parties will really enjoy doing an interrogation scene. Feel however you want about that. Some people just like the idea. They like the cop vibe of interrogating a prisoner and squeezing the information out of them. There's nothing wrong with that. Some parties are going to be uncomfortable with that. That's also fine. You can have one of the soldiers or a group of soldiers handle the interrogation for you. The party will still get rewarded for having captured and brought the prisoner back. Depending on what type of prisoner your party is able to grab, they get different levels of information. Captured kobolds are terrified and will tell the interrogators anything they want to hear. And they know that they're working for the cult of the dragon, that they're working for the dragon lady, that's Resmir, and that they are after loot. I personally don't like going ahead and telling the party that they're working against the cult of the dragon. I kind of like to tease that out a little bit later on, like around chapter 3 when they finally figure that out. But it's up to you. Captured mercenaries or bandits have no real loyalty to the cult, so they'll pretty much speak freely. They will tell you that they've been raiding towns and settlements around the green fields looking for loot, and that they've heard rumors around camp about dragon eggs. An actual cultist will be the most tight-lipped. It takes a DC 10 intimidation or a DC 12 persuasion check to get them to reveal what they know. They will reveal that they are members of the Cult of the Dragon, that they are gathering loot for the great Hoard that will usher in the reign of the Queen of Dragons. I don't like to tell them that this early in the campaign either. And that they have a clutch of dragon eggs that are under heavy guard in a cave back at camp. If the party chooses to try and save the mill, the governor says that he's organizing troops to defend the mill, but it will take some time. So he wants the party to go there, drive the attackers off, and protect the mill until his gathered troops can follow. He said it'll take like 15 minutes after the party gets there for his troops to arrive. It's 500 feet away from the keep. It's actually double that distance if they use the secret tunnel, which they probably will. And it says to roll on the encounters table to determine the strength of the force that is trying to burn the mill down. And that any kobolds in the party will flee as soon as 2 or more of the raiders are killed. If your party stops and observes the mill for a minute instead of just attacking when they get there, the book says that a DC 15 insight or performance check can tell that they are just making a show of lighting the mill on fire. They're not actually trying to light the mill on fire, and that those fires could be easily put out. Insight makes sense for this check. Performance does not. Performance is a role to perform either music or singing or art or whatever. It has nothing to do with telling when someone is lying or putting on a ruse. So just have them roll an insight check. The book then goes on to say that this is an ambush, that it's a setup, and that inside the mill up in the loft, there's one cultist and one guard per party member waiting to ambush them. It doesn't say that if you succeed on that insight check that you know it's an ambush. You just know that they're faking lighting the fires. So what I do is if they succeed by 5 or more, I have them also kind of understand like, hey, the only reason they would be pretending to burn the mill would be to lure us here. So if they do that, they can avoid this whole thing altogether. But if you have clever players, they will put 2 and 2 together and realize that the only reason to fake the burning of the mill would be to lure them here. The mill is 40 feet long, 20 feet wide. On one of the long sides, there's a big double barn door and then like a 2-part door. And each of the short sides has a window. They're all closed, but none of them are locked. Once inside, the wheel is still turning. They apparently were working late, and the wheel is powered by a water wheel in the stream. So when the people fled, it just kept running. So it makes it kind of loud in here. And then the ambushers are in a loft up above. There are stairs on the east side that lead up to the loft, and then there are large openings where bags of flour are cranked up with pulleys to be stored upstairs. It's a DC 20 perception check to notice the ambushers waiting up there. But it says if the party is scanning the loft, that they make that check with advantage. I do it where if the party realizes that the guys outside were faking, trying to light the fire, then they make the check with advantage either way. If they don't see the ambushers, they launch a volley of spears. They don't say how many, so I would guess that's 2 spears for every party member, and then they attack after that. That is brutal. Your party will have a very tough time surviving if these ambushers actually get their ambush off. Like the ambush is probably going to work if your party's not aware of them. So just keep that in mind for this event. Once the battle with these ambushers is finished, 10 minutes later, the troops from the keep, covered in blood like they've had to fight their way here, they will show up and relieve the party. They will protect the mill the rest of the night, and the party can go on. If the party decides to go save the people in the temple, they will show up at this large square building that is made of flagstones with a slate roof. There are actually 3 groups of raiders here. There's a group at the front listed as Group A that is using an improvised battering ram to try and break down the door. There is a group running around screaming. That's Group B, that's stretched out over 50 feet. It takes them 2 minutes aside, so it's 8-minute cycles, and they're just running around the temple screaming. That, to me, does not make a lot of sense. Also, unless it's like a mile around the temple, it should not take them 8 minutes, because like an average runner can run a mile in like between 8 and 9 minutes. So this temple's not a mile around, so I would not say they're running, screaming. I would say that there's a group like marching around, making sure that none of the townspeople mount some kind of resistance or escape from like a side window, and it takes them 8 minutes to march around the facility. Then there's Group C, which is piling brush against the back door and trying to light the temple on fire that way. It's the smallest group, and they are not having a lot of success lighting it on fire. Again, it's made of stone, but they're creating a lot of smoke. All of these groups together would easily overwhelm your party, so they have to take a second and come up with some sort of clever way to deal with the situation. Group A consists of a dragon claw, 2 cultists, and 6 kobolds. The 2 cultists are wielding the battering ram, the dragon claw is overseeing things, and the 6 kobolds are standing guard just in case of a counterattack, though the book says that they are distracted when Group B runs by. Group B is probably the strongest of the 3 groups. It consists of 3 cultists, 10 kobolds, and 2 ambush drakes. Your party should want to try and avoid this group if at all possible. Group C is the weakest group. It's just 2 cultists and 6 kobolds. Like I said, they're piling sticks and stuff against the back door trying to burn their way in. It's not working, but they're creating a lot of smoke. The book says they're covering 30 feet of the ground in smoke. I always treat it like they mean a 30-foot diameter circle. It also says that this area is lightly obscured, but that doesn't really make sense because the whole area except for inside the keep is already lightly obscured because it's nighttime. I just don't want you to be confused by that. But it says that anyone you try to see through 15 feet or more of the smoke is heavily obscured. So what I do is I just have the area, the 30-foot diameter area of smoke, be heavily obscured instead of having to worry about seeing through 15 feet or the fact that it's already dim light, so it's already a lightly obscured area. It's just the smoke makes it heavily obscured. The book says that if your party sneaks up on this group, as long as they're able to avoid Group B, they get a surprise round against Group C. There is actually no such thing as a surprise round in 5th edition. This is one of the reasons why I think they didn't fully have the rule set when they wrote this book. The way that surprise works in 5th edition is that the characters approaching roll stealth against the people they're trying to sneak up on's passive perception. And anybody whose passive perception is not high enough to see them, they individually are surprised, and they can't take actions or bonus actions or movement on their first round of combat, and they can't take reactions until after their first round of combat. So there's no such thing as a surprise round. It's done each individual character. Some people can be surprised while others are not. The book says that trying to sneak up and ambush Group C is the easiest way into the temple, and that the party could use a distraction to distract Groups A and B. Sneaking in through Group C is the way that most of the parties I've run for have done this, though I've had a couple parties come up with some other crazier ideas to draw the other groups away. But in general, sneaking up and attacking Group C is the way to go. Once inside, the townspeople in there are kind of freaking out, so it's a DC 15 persuasion check to try and calm everybody down. And if nobody succeeds at that, the best way to get the people to listen to you is to find Edian Falconmoon, who is the cleric to Chauntea here. He's a calm, level-headed half-elf. He will make the people listen to you. Here, the book actually has a really good description of keeping the tension high while you're trying to deal with these people in the temple. I don't think I've seen any other campaign that has such a good explanation of running a scene with tension and how to make that tension work. But you should always be trying to do what these next few paragraphs say. So what it says is, while you're in there and you're dealing with trying to organize the townspeople, you want to make sure that that booming of the ram at the front door keeps sounding every so many seconds so that the party realizes that time is of the essence. They need to organize this retreat quick. Keep that pressure on. They've put numbers in for you to be able to have like a mathematical way of handling something that, as a DM that's played for a while, you should be able to kind of handle with feel. But for the sake of newer DMs that haven't done this a lot, these numbers are a pretty good guideline to follow. It says that to keep that tension, the doors have 30 HP. Each time you have a boom, you roll a d6. That's how much damage the door takes. When it's down to 20 HP, there are cracks forming in the door. When it's down to 10 HP, that it's hanging in the hinges. When it's down to 5 HP, the doors could collapse on the next impact. Then it addresses how often you should roll the dice. I love this part. This is great for newer DMs. It says if you have a party that takes a little bit more time to decide on plans and likes to think through stuff and talk through stuff, you can roll it like every 30 seconds. If you have a party that thinks real quick and makes decisions fast and takes actions fast, you can roll it like every 10 or 15 seconds. Average, roll it like one every 20 seconds. The point is to keep that tension. But as an experienced DM, you should definitely roll the dice. You should as your party's talking, be rolling the die every few seconds and saying, oh, how much damage the door's taking. But you should make sure that the doors burst when like half the people have fled out the back door. Enough time so that everybody's not still in there, but that your party is just like a rear guard, protecting the people as they flee, not where everybody's still in there and your party's going to have to fight and people are just getting slaughtered, because your party can't win a fight against all these enemies and you don't want a bunch of townspeople to get slaughtered. Your main job as a DM is to make your party feel like heroes, not like failures. So you should have at least half, if not more, of the people out the back door by the time these doors burst free. And your party's not trying to win, they're just trying to protect people as they escape. Once the doors burst free, the whole temple descends into a messy melee. Kobolds prefer to attack unarmed villagers instead of armed adventurers, so unless the party attacks the kobolds, gets in their way, or stops them some other way, they will kill one townsperson each round. Once everybody gets out the back door and into the smoke, they can easily escape through the rest of the town and outrun their attackers, outrun their pursuers, and make their way safely to the keep. The party gets 100 XP apiece for rescuing the townspeople, plus the XP for killing the monsters, but that XP is reduced to 50 if more than 10 townspeople died, but we ignore XP anyway, we got milestone leveling. The final mission of this chapter is the Half-Dragon Challenge. So, near the end of the night, this should be the last thing that happens. As the cultists are leaving the town, before they're all gone, this is a blue half-dragon named Langdedrosa Cyanwrath. He has a group of kobolds with him that are dragging along 4 prisoners. He basically shouts that it's been a very fruitful night for his group, that he has no need of these 4 prisoners, and he'll be willing to trade them back if the keep will send out their best warrior to fight him one-on-one. I really love this encounter. It's very cinematic. It is a great finale to this evening of fighting, and it gives one of your party a chance to be a stalwart, brave hero. It's really fun to run. The book says that it's a DC 15 Arcana or Nature check to realize that Cyanwrath is a half-dragon. I am really curious to research and find out if the people that wrote this adventure knew that Dragonborn were going to be a race in 5th edition when they wrote this, because as far as I can remember, I don't think half-dragons are in like any other adventures. So part of me wonders if Cyanwrath was just supposed to be a Dragonborn, but because they didn't really know about Dragonborn yet, they just made him a half-dragon, or if they always intended to have both half-dragons and Dragonborn because they're kind of the same thing. But either way, he's a blue half-dragon, DC 15, you can tell that. Inside the keep, one of the soldiers, Sergeant Markuth, recognizes the humans as his family. It's his sister and her kids, and he's ready to go fight Cyanwrath. The governor will say, hey, I know you've done a lot so far, but you are the best warriors we have. Could you please handle this one more burden? If the party refuses, he's disappointed, but he understands, and he says it in no way diminishes what they've done so far. I've run this several times. I've never had a party be like, nah, bro, go fight your own battle. Any party that has a paladin or a fighter or a barbarian, which every party will have at least one of those guys are going out there to fight Cyanwrath. They want the glory. They do. You will have somebody answer the call. It says that Cyanwrath, even though he's evil, is actually very honorable when it comes to one-on-one duels, and that whenever the party member comes out, he releases everybody but the sister, the adult woman, and says that as long as nobody interferes, that he will not hurt the woman, and that he will let her go when the battle's over. And it doesn't say in the book, but I've had parties want to insight check him, and I've even started where I offer, like, if you want to insight check him, and they find out that he's sincere, that he really will let them go. I tend to run gritty, brutal games, so I usually don't have him let everybody else go. I have the kobolds keep all 4 of them, and if the party interferes, they take the people out, because that's what he said he would do. It says if the party tries to surround him, or tries to get the drop on him, or get in a position where they can ambush him, he warns them hey, don't go any further or I'll kill these people. I really like that idea that he's honorable in this way, even though he's evil. I usually take it one step further, and I have him not even kill the party member. So the way that this battle is, the chances of your 1st or 2nd level party member defeating Langdedrosa in single combat is practically 0. And it says that once he defeats that party member, he will hit them one more time. it would kill Sergeant Markarth if you let him fight him, but it will just cause your party member one death save, and then he takes the kobolds and leaves. He releases the woman either way, like he said, and then healers from the keep rush out and they save the party member. They don't let them die. But I've had parties where one of the spellcasters or a ranged fighter does try to attack, does try to interfere. They just couldn't resist, and he's killed those people. But I really like the idea of him being an honorable character who's just fighting on the other side of this war from the party. So what I do is I try to make sure the battle at least lasts a couple rounds, because if he crits, he could really just end it in like one round. I've seen it happen. So I will kind of make sure that doesn't happen. I let the party member at least have a chance to fight, even though I also make sure he realizes how outmatched he is, because this is early in the campaign. You want your party to feel like heroes, but you want them to feel like they become heroes. They can't be defeating everybody willy-nilly right at the start. So this defeat is actually great for character progression, because they're going to remember someday when they're fighting dragons, when they're slaying dragons, they'll remember when they lost that fight and how far they've come. So I have it so that once he defeats the party member, he doesn't do that extra attack, that he actually like congratulates the rest of the party on how honorable this party member was, and then he goes and retreats. And I like the fact that doing that makes it so when the party runs into him later and has to fight him for real, they have like that little bit of like, man, this is an honorable guy. Like there's a little bit of a moral struggle there on whether or not they should just straight up kill him when they fight him later because he let one of them live. And those kind of moral choices are really fun in D&D. As reward, as long as one of the party members fought Cyanwrath, everybody gets 50 XP. Healers with a +4 to their medicine and healers kits will run out of the keep and heal the party member. Governor Nighthill will reward the party member who fought Cyanwrath with 2 healing potions. But if the party took an action that cost the life of a hostage, it says that the governor will be furious with them and offers them no aid. It's funny because at the end of the chapter is a section called Developments, which tells you how to handle if the party doesn't run in to fight the dragon and help the town. So they are even aware how silly it is that your party would rush in to fight an adult dragon. Like I said, start your people in town so you don't have to worry about that. And it says with milestone leveling, they now get to level 2. But ideally, you made them level 2 a long time ago. At that point, the last of the raiders leave Greenest. Your party has done what they can to minimize the danger. You can go out into the town, find the remaining people that are hiding in basements and cellars, and try to pick up the pieces as much as you can. A lot of the town's wealth has been taken. There are tracks that are pretty obvious that lead toward the bandits' camp. But you have finished Chapter 1. If you've made it this far, throw me a like. If you want to keep up with this campaign or check out the other campaigns I've done walkthroughs of or any of the other videos I like to do, feel free to subscribe. If you like what I do, you want to help me keep making these videos, I have a shop on my channel. You can get this shirt. I've got other fun, silly D&D apparel on there. I have memberships live on my channel. Shout out to GL, Sammy J, Jose, Cody Lawson, and our newest channel member, Cyanwrath. Thank you guys. These videos take a lot of time and effort and money to produce, and your contribution helps out a lot. Here are some other videos I've done that you guys might like. Thanks, guys, and God bless you.